when I heard the title, I was interested in this notion of our stories and our history, our art, and who tells these. So, because it's so important, if you look at our history and you look at the African history, most of the time it's not even told by Africans, you know? And so what does this mean? It means that we are portrayed a certain way, and this is not always in a positive way, obviously, because most of the time people who did tell our stories were people who had their own economic interests with us. So yeah, I'm really interested in trying to get us to be able to tell our own stories, to become our own voices and our own people, because that's what defines us at the end of the day. And so this poem that I'm going to read is called Who Tells Our Stories? I've heard that the stories of hunting will remain weak unless the lion itself learns to speak. Because if it is he who exploits us that tells our stories, you see, then we will always be spear-hurling savages, you and me. Because during slavery, when we were forced to work for the whites, this is the story they told. We're doing those Negroes a favor, bringing them from the dark continent into the light, and with that story we were sold. They convinced themselves that Negroes are like beasts without the capacity to feel shame, pain, or sorrow. And slaves are clothed and fed, so we're giving them a far better deal than they know. And the stories of hunting remained weak because the lion was whipped if he tried to speak. And when that lie became transparent and it became apparent that Africans were not like children who needed a parent, they began a new lie that would keep us subservient. Through their media, they began to portray us as primitive and uncivilized, and thus announced it their burden to come here and rescue us, make us believers as though we were uncertain. Their holy book was the only book they allowed and forced us to read, taught us to pray while they preyed on our meat. Throughout this perjury, they proudly named us converting we, then went back and told of our tears of joy when actually we cried and we'd bleed. So if it is he who exploits us that tells our stories, you see, then we are spear-hurling savages, you and me. And so it went on through the colonial era, stole our food and fed us lies that the smarter were fairer, a historical era, until we ourselves began to feel that we were inferior. Then they didn't have to do so much storytelling because blindly we became mouthpieces, still viewing ourselves through white eyes, judging ourselves on white standards. These were our white lies. And so we bit our mother tongues. After all, how else could we survive? And so the stories of hunting remained weak because the lion itself could not speak. And so they observed us until we became blind. They spoke and spoke until our own words we couldn't find. And now we want our black eyes to reflect the sky. We want hair that follows orders from the wind, because they taught us that black was the color of ignorance, of death. No one has taught us that black is the color of endlessness, the universe, and of depth. When they told our story, they spoke of primitive people with no organization. They spoke of our fields which seemed unused with no signs of cultivation. We did not explain to them that we had empires with kings and queens and tribunals and courts and music and religion and love. We didn't explain our early civilizations. We didn't explain why we didn't plant our crops in rows, a form of productive intercropping we used for stopping the soil from overutilization, and so no one reached this realization. And so the stories of hunting remained weak because the lion never did speak. For too long we have allowed our stories to be told for us. Let us not speak on behalf of the West, let us speak from within us. Waafrika, tujenge hadithi zetu wenyewe za kuhadithia. Zile hadithi zetu za zamani tusisahau kuzisikia. Listen to the stories BB tells, not just the stories BBC sells. Let us revive our storytellers of old. Let us sing the songs we sang and retell the stories we told. And as we move along, let us create our own standard, our own beauty. Let us be bold. Let us take walks down memory streets, retrace and teach the beat of our ancestors' feet, but move to the groove of our own emancipation. Casually, let's speak our native minds with no care as to who this will suit. Let the lion speak of the fact that the hunter shakes in his boots before he shoots. Their old stories, they rendered us weak. Now, let the lion speak.